Hello everyone, you're watching Reporters, the program that brings you in-depth reports from around the world. There can be few countries as haunted by their recent past as Rwanda. 15 years ago, close to 1 million people were killed, mainly with machetes. Today, the country is moving on, with one man shaping its future, for better or worse, the Tutsi president, Paul Kagame. His dream turned the tiny landlocked state into the Singapore of Africa, with the best students and the fastest growing economy. And with his re-election pretty much guaranteed, Kagame is set to continue down this path. His critics, however, say he has trampled on political freedoms, using the army to assert his authority and clamping down on opponents. Lucas Menget and Hélène Frade report from a country trying to look ahead, even as it continues to deal with the ghosts of its past.
Some call Rwanda the land of 1,000 hills. Some also call it the country of dreams. But what's certain is that in these hills, 1 million Rwandans were killed in just 6 weeks. That's 1 out of 8. Rwanda's genocide was the quickest human massacre since Hiroshima. Today, the dream is for Rwandan children to grow up in peace, learning about genocide only through books and stories. For that to happen, Rwanda wants to make its children the most educated in all of Africa. Gloria believes in this dream. This 24-year-old is part of a team working to bring computers into Rwanda's classrooms. To turn this small nation into the Singapore of Africa, she has to work quickly. The plan is that within 2 years, at least half of the country's children will have a small laptop like these, for use both at home and at school.
One of the major strengths of this country is that it has a dream, and that many people believe in it. With this particular project, the school has showed enormous goodwill. The parents, the school administrators, they've made a lot of effort and have been very creative.
Classes are taught in English for reasons both practical and ethical.
You are writing. Okay. What are you writing?
I write a homework.
Okay. He's writing his homework. Il est en train d'écrire son devoir à domicile.
It's opening them up to the world so that they're not subjected to just one ideology. Instead, they're exposed to a variety of ideas. Children should have the freedom to think for themselves and choose what they feel is best for the country and for its people.
This idea came from the very top. President Paul Kagame has encouraged partnerships between the public and private sectors to finance such projects.
It started at the government level. The president himself initiated the project. It was his idea that every Rwandan child should have a laptop and be comfortable with ICT. That's information communication technology. The president wants each child to grow up computer literate.
Here, the future of Rwanda is taking shape. Gloria's boss, like everyone else here, is firmly optimistic. Yet this remains a very traditional country where bringing computers into rural areas can shake up family dynamics.
When a student brings home a $200 laptop, all of a sudden it's all the family can think about. He's got an object that's much more expensive than anything his mother or father could bring home, so it completely changes a family's dynamic.
Isn't that dangerous?
It's not dangerous because Rwanda's gone through tragic times, and since 1994 Rwanda has evolved. After 2000 we've seen an exponential evolution in all areas.
If all goes well, Rwandan children will become the most computer literate and educated in all of Africa. But there's still a ways to go, and in this village, Byumba, the elders observe the changing times with suspicion. This project seems to hang on the president's will. Late in the evening, in his ministry in Kigali, Charles MURIGANDE is still hard at work. After serving as Kagame's foreign affairs minister, he switched to education, another high-profile job. He, too, believes in Rwanda's dream. But most of all, he believes in the power of one man, his boss, to make that dream come true.
It all hangs on leadership. If a leader is weak, if he doesn't do what he says, if he has no vision, well, nothing will happen. But when you have a leader who does what he says, and says what he does, then automatically things begin to work.
So does this mean Paul Kagame's character is the sole force behind this exceptional project? The answer isn't that simple. Foreign companies, mainly Chinese ones, are rebuilding the city center. As the country grows, Kigali is transforming. The goal is to turn Rwanda into a technology hub like Singapore within 10 years. Yet the government's strategy is not to forget the past, quite the opposite. It tries to use it as a force for change. For example, every last Saturday of the month is Lumuganda, a half day of collective work for all Rwandans.
Let's plant them.
This is Rica. She's 32 years old and grew up abroad. But she came home after the genocide, drawn to Rwanda's growth. She works for the government to promote her country. Rwanda has long been drawn up into geographic subdivisions, districts, sectors, and cells. This methodical organization is now helping the country rebuild thanks to healthy competition.
There's a bit of competition among the sectors. If certain sectors frequently participate in Lumuganda, they're recognized for it. We give credit to the local authorities. It's something for the residents to be proud of. They can say, here in our sector, we're working well, we're recognized. So it's thanks to this light competition between sectors that people come out, that some sectors receive recognition and others less so.
And it works. It may be mandatory, but everyone seems to believe in it. Those in charge show the way.
I've got to set a good example for everyone else. All government workers do. Actually, all leaders, even in the private sector, feel they have a duty to be good role models.
When the work is done in this suburb of Kigali, the local authorities round up everyone to take stock. Their goal this morning is to educate the population about the environment. They're singing, dancing, laughing, but the message is clear. It will take the whole population together to rebuild Rwanda. A few members of Kagame's party are here to reinforce the message with a reminder in theatrical form. A man has had too much to drink and misses Lumuganda. There's no punishment, but it's severely frowned upon. In a country where half the population is suffering of post-traumatic stress disorder, work has become a form of national therapy. A 2-hour drive from Kigali, slightly past Rwanda, is another key piece of the Rwandan dream. This rehabilitation center has welcomed over 9,000 former fighters over the course of 9 years. These Rwandan rebels waged war from neighboring Congo. To bring them home, Rwanda offered to pardon them and help them ease back into civilian life.
I wrote them forward. They are in Congo. They were given amnesty. They were given amnesty to come back and build their country, contribute in the country in nation building, rather than jailing people, jailing them for what?
265 students are currently attending this rather peculiar school. Critics call this method brainwashing. All these men and a handful of women are Rwandan. Many fled when Kagame took over after the genocide. Some have spent more than 16 years in Congo's jungle. Drawn by the country's growth and by the promise of amnesty, the former fighters are given 2 months of civic education. The classes are intended to help them grasp the scale of the changes their homeland's gone through. Only then will they be allowed to reunite with their families and look for work. This colonel is one of the students. A rebel for 16 years, he now wants to be a patriot, and he doesn't like to dwell on his past.
I told you, there's no more reason for me to fight against the regime. My family and the government opened my eyes.
So today you trust the government?
Yes, I came back because I trusted this government.
But what's the difference between the FPR party when you were 25, when you left because the FPR came to power, and the FPR party of today? What's changed?
I can't answer that question, but I can say that right now everything's going very well.
17 of the colonel's men came back to Rwanda with him. Tired of fighting, they admit that the country has changed and that they don't want to miss out. Faustin Kagame is one of the president's closest advisors. He says he was won over by the ambition of the military chief turned civilian. He believes people are a bit too quick to criticize the president.
I think he's exemplary. I imagine you've noticed there's no cult of personality surrounding the president. You never hear any songs that go, Kagame, Kagame. There are no monuments to his glory, etc. That's important to note. We're all very conscious of the fact that he will go down as an important historical figure.
The regime has flaws. The opposition is kept at a distance, but Kagame has managed to lift the specter of violence, and that in itself is a huge feat.
There is no sign that the current government has any genocidal tendencies. So that won't happen again under its watch. The genocide was carried out by the government, with the help of its administrations and with the army's weapons. All genocides are like this. They're targeted against specific populations, populations that are generally unarmed. You know, racism is everywhere. It's a curse throughout the world, but here it went all the way, and it almost destroyed my country.
On a Sunday morning at Kigali Stadium, Rwanda's professional cyclists meet for a race. Yet another side of the new Rwanda. In fact, Rica is here too. She's on national television, touting the benefits of sports and encouraging Rwandans to welcome tourists. Optimism is the watchword. Rwanda has to be exemplary. There's little doubt that Paul Kagame will score a second term. The opposition has been poorly organized and got a late start. To catch up to Kagame, it would need a very strong counterattack. This time, the president knows he will no longer be judged solely in the light of his remarkable handling of post-genocide Rwanda. In a country forever scarred by violence, it remains to be seen whether Kagame will achieve his dreams.
Joining us now on set is Lucas Menget, one of the authors of this report. Lucas, thanks for being on set with us. One of the questions I wanted to ask you when I viewed your report was, what do ordinary Rwandan citizens think of Kagame and his politics?
Well, the average of the Rwandan citizens really are impressed by Kagame politics and what he has done with the country since the genocide when he came to power and on his last 5 years as a president of Rwanda. Of course, there are some Rwandans who are criticizing a lot Paul Kagame's policy. There are some people inside the Hutu community, but also some people inside the Tutsi, his own community. Some people are saying that Kagame is taking too much power, that he's not sharing enough his power. But most of the people are really impressed by the fact that, as you saw in the story, the children have computers in some schools, that the streets are very clean, that the economy is growing very fast.
Now, you mentioned that some people accuse him of holding all the reins of power. And it's true that there are not many people running against Paul Kagame in this upcoming presidential election. In fact, the only candidates are some of his former allies. How come? Is it dangerous to run against Kagame?
Well, some of the people who tried to be real opponent of Paul Kagame were expelled of the electoral process, and they were not allowed to run for the election, the presidential election. Most of the opponents now are abroad, and most of them are in South Africa, and they're former close allies of President Kagame. That's what is really strange for Rwanda's people. The chief of staff, for example, of the army, Mr. Faustin is in South Africa. Someone tried to kill him a month ago, and so that's a very, very strange political campaign and quite a tense political campaign. And some of the people are saying that Kagame tried to erase every opposition.
Luca, one of the things that comes across really strongly in your report is there appears to be a strong collective determination to improve the country. And you explain in the report that this is thanks to Kagame. This is his policy. How come this has worked and is working in Rwanda and hasn't worked in other African countries?
Well, you have to see that despite the fact that this political campaign is a bit strange and tense, there is a common goal in the Rwandan society. The Rwandans have suffered one of the most impressive genocide of the history of the world. After the genocide, they had no choice. Either they all died or they tried to do something different. With Kagame and a lot of people around Kagame, they decided to move forward and to transform this country into a very modern country. That's why it's what happens now in Rwanda is an exception in Africa. They have suffered one of the most terrible things in the world, and they decided to become a very different country in 20 years.
And what's happening now is directly linked to what happened 15 years ago and to the genocide.
Everything is linked to the genocide 15 years ago. Politics, economy, society, culture, everything is linked. That's why in every schools in Rwanda you have a sign explaining what was a genocide, and in order not to do something like that again.
Lucas Menget, you are one of the co-authors of this report with Enfrad. Thank you very much for being on set with us. That's all for this edition of Reporters, but you can find all the editions of Reporters on our website, france24.com. Just click Reporters. We're back next week, same time, same place. Bye-bye.